This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Far and wide, the record rally is reaching just about every corner of the market. So what should you do with your money now?
Losses mount. Sears, once America's top retailer, sees its sales spiral, and as more stores close.
Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Support comes from the University of Alaska College Savings Plan, helping you and your child save for college every step of the way, from diapers to diploma. More information at uacollegesavings.com.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is December 8th, 2016. When we're not here, you can always check us out by looking at our information online at weather.gov/Alaska. Now, when we're not here, you can also give us a phone call at 1-800-472-0391 and then press in your option for your forecast area. And as always, we like to hear your comments or suggestions, and you can email us at nwsar.tvweather@noaa.gov. Now on to the important topics of the day. For the weather across the south central area, the main focus and concern is across the Thompson Pass area. They were seeing winds gusting between 40 to 50 miles per hour this afternoon, reducing visibilities in snow as a weather front passes over that area, and that'll be in effect until 9 p.m. this evening. Now looking out towards the southeast, we still have warnings and advisories in this area. To the north near White Pass, we have an advisory, a wind chill advisory, and that's in effect from tonight, and that runs through Monday morning, Monday afternoon at noon. So in these locations, you can expect winds gusting between 30 to 50 miles per hour, with wind chills dropping down also between 30 to 50 below zero. Now looking at the red areas for the Juneau and Douglas area, you can expect some blowing snow this evening. This warning is out for winter snow advisory for, this is a high wind warning. I apologize. This is for winds at 45 miles per hour. They're going to be gusting to 60 to 75 miles per hour, and this is in effect this evening, and that runs through Saturday as well. Now, looking at winds, they'll be strongest during the Friday afternoon time period through Saturday morning and then ending at 12 p.m. Now, this area has seen quite a bit of snow in the past few days, and that's what I wanted to mention, is that you can expect reduced visibilities in this warning area as the blowing snow, all that fresh snow that is lying around is going to be blowing around now in the conditions that are setting up. Now, taking a look to the north, we have a winter weather advisory for blowing snow, and this is for the upper Koyukuk Valley, including the Bettles area, and this is for along the hill areas. Expect winds gusting between 30 to 45 miles per hour. That'll be reducing visibilities as well below 1 mile at times, and that is running through the day tomorrow. And stay tuned for updates as we do have a ridge settling in. We'll look at your initial conditions first across the satellite, watching the spin of the moist air mass here in the Gulf. You can see this has an axis that's stretched across the south central area back towards Kodiak Island. You can see a little bit of that counterclockwise spin around this system, and this is also has a front just down to the south here. However, the low pressure system with this is sitting well to the southeast of the Dixon entrance. So not expecting too much activity from that low pressure system. We'll get to that in just a moment. Across the central and northern interiors of the state, mainly clear for the most part, with the blowing snow being caused from the high pressure that's moving in, and tighter gradients bring that northerly flow. Now across the western areas of the state, we do have some low to mid-level clouds showing up in this lighter gray or darker gray color along the western areas of the state through the Alaska Peninsula, and we're seeing some snow showers just along the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak area, with some lighter rain activity out there along the western Gulf. Here's another front that pulled into the area yesterday and stretches all the way from the central Aleutians on up towards the Kamchatka area. And then we have another low pressure system. And if I put this into motion, you can see approaching Shimia, there's another large area of white on the satellite, and that's indicating that there's a front moving up from the North Pacific there. So taking just a general look, you have one low pressure moving towards Kodiak and another approaching Shimia with a diminishing front along the central areas of the Bering. Taking a look at your surface map from today, we have this frontal boundary across the central areas of the Bering, and that's kind of diminishing with rain along the boundary, snow up there to the north, and rain is just to the south of Shimia this afternoon. Now along the Alaska Peninsula, here's the snow on the backside of low pressure system that's just sitting over here in the Gulf waters, and the strongest low pressure system is well below the Dixon entrance, and this is mainly bringing some rain along the boundary. However, we only have some light shower activity spreading north of this system with just a weak boundary allowing some snow showers to develop there along the northeast Gulf Coast and the southern areas of the state back towards the Kenai Peninsula. A little bit of a transition there between the rain and snow, with snow mainly across the eastern coastal areas of the Kenai, and snow kind of drifting off to the west here of Kodiak, with a rain-snow mix expected overnight. Very light accumulations, however, on the backside of this weakening system. Now, low pressure will stay across the western areas of the Gulf, and I know there's a large area of moisture, precipitation, rain and snow. However, with the system weakening and not strengthening, there's not much organization, just some weak waves rotating around the upper low, and that's just going to keep the light showers, snow and rain ongoing through the night. Now across the southeast there is a drying out trend as we have high pressure that's moving into the northern tier of the state, and that's causing a very tight gradient along the southern areas, the panhandle. So we do have this blowing snow along mainly for Thompson Pass. Light snow shower activity outside of that is not reducing and affecting other areas. However, you should be cautious if you're in the mountain ranges along the eastern facing slopes, as they'll see the most snow activity. Now on to the north, clear skies, very cold temperatures settling in pretty much from the eastern Brooks Range south towards Fairbanks, and then Eagle as well, seeing the coldest temperatures of the year so far, and we'll get onto that in just a moment. West Coast will be mainly dry conditions with some light shower activity across the Alaska Peninsula continuing. Not a lot of movement for these systems out towards the west. As we head into your Friday, the winds will start picking up out of the southeast across the western areas of the chain with that front approaching. Expect mainly rain with the system, as this is a warm air mass. Temperatures will warm to near 40. Now along the low pressure system on the backside, this is going to help pull some of those colder temperatures down. So light snow shower activity will occur around this low pressure system. However, we're not expecting any accumulations with this low, as we're really not seeing any organization. So just light shower activity, some moisture available for showers to initiate. And then across the southern areas of the state, this pressure gradient is going to stay tight, so the northerly offshore flow is going to be affecting areas, and of course bring the strong winds right through the Lynn Canal. Those northern channels are going to be very gusty tomorrow, between 30 and 50 miles per hour, with some higher gusts as you head to the north. And of course, across the Juneau and Douglas area, they're expected to see between 60 and 75 miles per hour. And then across the northern tier of the state, the winds aren't going to be there, but the temperatures are certainly going to range in the morning between 30 to 50 below zero. Along the northwest coast, a little bit quieter through Saturday, not a lot of wind, staying dry for most of the state and drying out across the south central and southwestern areas into the weekend as a very dry, cold air mass settles to the south. However, like I said, remain focused on the winds across the southeast as the gradient continues to remain a little bit tight, with the troughing staying across the eastern areas of the Gulf. The low pressure system in the eastern Pacific is going to be moving further to the east. Low pressure is going to stay also another trough just to the south of Kodiak Island, mainly bring some light rain shower activity, with it moderating just to above freezing along the southern areas of the Gulf there. Now to the west, you can see a large area of precipitation associated with the front, mainly just showers across the Bering, with the activity mainly focused around the central and western areas of the Aleutians, with higher gusts on this day between 30 and 50 miles per hour. And then we'll see a rain-snow mix across the southern areas of the Bering, and like I said, mainly rain across the Aleutian chain. Now taking a look at your temperatures for today, the coldest temperatures of the state were to the north. Along the coastal areas, we saw temperatures peaking out in the mid-30s mainly. Very cold for the southeast today, with Juneau only getting up to 19 degrees this afternoon. Cold temperatures at 4 p.m. ranged into the mid-teens to the lower 20s. And just to the north, Eagle was at 38 below, with the cold temperatures dropping down at Fort Yukon, 45 below. And then along the north and northwest coast, they ranged between 10 below to 25 below zero. Along the Seward Peninsula, more cold temperatures, but transitioning to near zero as you head towards the southwest, with temperatures ranging between 3 degrees and 15 degrees mostly for the Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim area. Now across the eastern areas of the Bering, we see temperatures just below freezing out there in the upper 20s, and then across the central areas of the Bering, slightly more modified into the mid to upper 30s. The warmest temperatures today were out at Adak at 43 degrees, and also at Middleton Island, we saw 43 degrees there as well. Now for your overnight temperatures, expect not much of a diurnal change again across the entire state, seeing the coldest temperatures across the east and northern tier of the state between 30 to 50 below, but don't forget across the southeast, you're going to see those winds bring those wind chills down across the northern channels there, with the coldest temperatures near White Pass, 30 to 50 below zero. And then we'll see temperatures just as cold across the south central back towards the Gulf, slightly warmer with a modified temperature in that troughing area right around freezing or just above. Now across the southwest, temperatures will drop down into the below zero range once again, and that's going to be true of most of the western areas of the state, anywhere from 5 below to 15 below. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, with that cold high pressure moving into the area, we're not going to see temperatures improve much. However, perhaps a 5 to 15 degree climb in temperatures across much of the western areas of the state, nearly steady, slightly warmer temperatures across eastern areas of the state, and the southern areas will remain very cold, with the wind chills making those temperatures across the southeast feel much colder than what the apparent temperature is. Now across the western Aleutians, we'll see the warmest temperatures out there in the lower 40s, with temperatures across the Alaska Peninsula through the eastern areas of the Bering ranging into the teens to the lower 30s. Now looking at your flying weather tomorrow, conditions are going to be mostly clear across the northern tier of the state. Perhaps some MVFR conditions along the eastern areas of the Alaska range, and some starting off conditions with IFR for Portage and portions of the Alaska Peninsula. We'll see some IFR, and then mainly MVFR conditions around the low pressure system out across the Gulf and across the Bering. And then we'll see mainly clear and gusty conditions across the southeast. Now the flying weather for the afternoon, pretty much improving across the Portage area, staying the same for the Mentasta area, and conditions across the southwest mostly clear for you. And then the system moving up to the western areas of the Bering is going to bring MVFR, widespread, and IFR conditions for the far western areas. Now looking at your passes in more depth, we have Anahtuvik, and both Adigan will be VFR tomorrow, and Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will be VFR, more VFR at Rainy Pass, and we'll see Windy also VFR, and we'll see Isabel go from MVFR to VFR later in the day. Mentasta will be the one location that'll probably stay MVFR all day. Tenita will go IFR to VFR in the afternoon. Portage, MVFR to VFR. And we'll see Chilkoot and White Pass, both VFR conditions. Now the freezing levels tomorrow will be draped across the central areas of the Bering, and then just hugging the coastline with the 2,000-foot level just off the coast along the Gulf, and then draped along the AKwx area, so central Aleutians, climbing slowly to 4,000 feet to the south. The icing will be a concern across the western areas of the Bering Gulf, including Kodiak Island, and out towards the western areas of the Bering. And then conditions for your jet stream, it's going to be primarily a northerly flow across the state around low pressure, very weak system, not sending any systems very quick, as we have weak ridging separating the low pressure system out to the west, and then just a high pressure just circulating around the north. And that's going to help pull those colder temperatures in, as 9,000 foot winds has that ridge digging all the way out here into the northern Bering, and then pulling that cold air mass around low pressure here to the south. Across the western areas of the Bering, the change of direction becomes more southeasterly ahead of that low. Stacked system, so very similar towards the 3,000 foot level, with the strongest jet out here across the western areas of the Aleutians at 50 knots. I know we're going to have some gusty conditions across the southeast out of the north, but just off the surface, the flow is going to be about 30 knots. Now, across the interior areas, a speedy jet is going to be over the central areas of the state. Looking at your turbulence, just to sum everything up, the turbulence are going to be a concern across those central areas of the state with that northerly gusty flow, mainly a speed shear, and then below 4,000 feet across the interior, as well as the northern areas of the coast here. And that turbulence actually should be covering up into this panhandle area on over towards the southeast, as we do have that speed shear with the winds gusting through those channels there in the northern canal. Now across the Bering, mostly below 4,000 feet, just to the north of the Bering. Now in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
The Moon versus the Geminids. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. This week, we're going to answer a question from one of our viewers. John Zimmerman of New Jersey writes, "Dear Stargazers, I've seen a lot of meteor showers, and I've always wondered, why are some meteor showers better than others?"
Excellent question, John. This week, our planet Earth will intersect the path of an asteroid named 3200 Phaethon, and we're usually treated to what can be a very good meteor shower.
However, this year, our nearest neighbor in space is going to ruin some of the fun. What are we talking about? Let's show you. To answer John's question, a meteor shower occurs whenever our Earth rides directly into a stream of space debris, and the little pieces of debris slam into our Earth's upper atmosphere and produce visible streaks of light. We call these streaks of light meteors, or shooting stars.
You see, every time a comet pays a visit to the sun, it sheds part of itself. And eventually, as the comet makes a lot of trips to the sun, the entire orbit of the comet gets littered with comet debris. And whenever our Earth crosses a well-littered cometary orbit, we get hit with this stuff and experience what we call a meteor shower.
The meteor shower we're experiencing next week is the Geminid meteor shower, and back in 1983, it was discovered that the object responsible for the Geminid meteor shower is not an ordinary comet, but an asteroid, or perhaps better named, a rock comet.
After a comet has made a lot of trips to the sun, all its snow and ice eventually melt away, and only a solid core is left. We then call that solid comet core an asteroid, since it's no longer capable of producing a cometary display.
Therefore, what we're experiencing here is debris from a comet so old and worn out that it no longer has the stuff to put on all the show and wonder of a brilliant comet head with a long tail of gas and dust, such as Comet Hale-Bopp. So, while we will never ever again see a brilliant comet associated with the Geminid meteor shower, we will continue to experience the Geminid meteor shower itself, which is one of the two best meteor showers of the year, the August Perseids usually coming in as number one. This year, the peak of the shower will occur on Tuesday, December 13th, after dark, right through to sunrise Wednesday morning, December 14th. However, unlike previous years, this year might be a washout on the night of the peak because of our nearest neighbor in space.
That's right, James. Our ever-popular and lovely natural satellite, the Moon, will be in a bothersome location in its orbit this time around. It will be in the waning gibbous phase, which will put it above the horizon during the best part of the shower.
Fortunately, the Geminids is such a dense meteor shower that it usually puts on a good show for several nights before and after the peak. So, beginning as early as December 7th to as late as December 21st, you can see quite a few meteors associated with the shower without interference by the Moon.
So, to finish answering John's question, this is a major reason why some meteor showers are better than others. Although the timing of the peak of the meteor shower stays pretty much the same every year, the phase of the Moon is always different on the same date each year.
Therefore, if your meteor shower is ruined by a full moon on December 13th one year, a year or so later, the Moon will be in a waxing phase on that same date, putting it below the horizon during the meteor shower's peak and thus making the fainter meteors easier to see.
To watch the Geminid meteor shower, get comfortable in a lawn chair or sleeping bag and constantly scan the sky back and forth. It's good to be far from city lights and have a clear, dark sky to catch the faintest of the meteors.
And again, it helps if you can get outside before the Moon comes up.
So, watch our Earth impact the remains of an asteroid over the next 2 weeks.
And it will be such a lovely impact, particularly if you remember to keep looking up.
All right, here we are back to your marine forecast. As you would expect, sea ice is covered across the northern areas of the state and all along the western areas. We're expecting that growth to expand across the open waters just along and north of the Bering Strait as the winds are getting slightly lighter across the Kotzebue Sound there and north. So expect that ice to be expanding in the next several days. Now looking at the southeast, as you expect, here's the conditions for the Northernland Canal gusting above 45 knots. So that's your persistent wind there at 45 knots with the wind speed slightly lower just to the south between 25 and 30 knots. And the outer waters, we'll see all small craft advisories out there as well. North to easterly direction across the area for your Friday with higher gusts across the northern areas of the Marines. Now looking at your seas between 5 to 14 feet, highest there to the north in the inner channels, and then 9 to 12 feet across the outer waters. Heading into your Saturday, not much change expected, a little bit higher wind speeds out there along the eastern Gulf, gales, and then we'll see between 25 to 40 knots across the inner channels, all out of the north and east direction. Once again, seas across the inner channels 5 to 12 feet, highest to the north, and then across the outer waters, lower seas that day 6 to 9 feet. Looking at the western areas of the Gulf, more of a northeasterly flow across the entire marine area, and then we'll see the highest winds along the Barren Islands there, 25 to 35 knots, so small craft and gales across most of the areas in that location. Lighter wind speeds to the north between 10 to 15 knots. Seas across the Cook Inlet will be between 6 to 9 feet, and then looking at seas across the western areas of the Gulf between 7 and 10 feet across the Shelikof Strait. Looking at your Saturday forecast, fairly uniform wind once again out of the northeast with small craft across the Cook Inlet, southern areas, and then down through Shelikof Strait. Looking at seas on this day, around 2 feet for the northern areas of the inlet where it's ice-free, and then across the Prince William Sound. Look for higher gusts there out of the northeast as well. Looking at seas across the south areas between 6 to 9 feet. Heading into your Alaska Peninsula, another north to northeasterly flow for your Friday, and seas 4 to 7 feet on the Bering side with 7 to 9 feet on the Pacific side. Saturday, a little bit weaker winds on this day, around 3 to 6 feet, and looking for freezing spray both days, Friday and Saturday, for the Alaska Peninsula. Looking at the Aleutian areas, strong gusty winds out of the east direction until you get towards the eastern Aleutians, becomes a little bit more northerly on your Friday. Seas will range between 7 to 17 feet, highest seas out towards the west. On Saturday, expect changes in wind direction across the central areas there, with gale warnings setting up for the entire western half of the chain, and seas on this day will be between 6 to 16 feet, and the highest seas again will be out towards the west. Looking at your west coast on Friday, a northeasterly flow and small craft advisories for much of the Bering. Looking at the seas on this day between 6 to 9 feet, highest seas there to the north, and freezing spray, heavy freezing spray, especially along the coastal areas. On your Saturday, lighter speeds for this day, mainly out of the north and northeast, becoming variable towards the Pribilof Islands, and seas will be between 5 and 8 feet on this day. And then for the Arctic areas, looking at winds to be a little bit calmer out in that direction, around 10 knots with some ice development, keeping seas just along the Chukchi Sea area around 2 feet. And then we have an easterly wind, southeasterly winds becoming southwest to the north and out towards the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, they become more west. A change in wind directions for your Saturday, but still light winds prevail at 10 knots, and then seas will be again around 2 feet. A recap on your forecast for tonight. We are going to see the high wind warnings for Juneau and Douglas area, with gusty winds setting up between 60 to 75 miles per hour, and that's going to be continuing through Saturday at noon. We have a blizzard warning that continues across the Thompson Pass area through tonight at 9 p.m. Looking at winter weather advisory for the upper Koyukuk Valley, blowing tonight through Saturday as well. High pressure moves in, colder temps to the north, very gusty conditions continuing across the southeast through your weekend, and then across the west we have this low pressure system moving in for your Saturday. Have a great evening. We'll be back with you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.